Okay. Okay. Working unscripted and also trying to do some sound and voice checks because there is an issue, obviously, with the sound quality. So I am going to do some off script rehearsal here and just get used to seeing working with no net, basically. So today I'm going to talk about a question that I got asked a lot when I first showed up, basically out of nowhere here in Finland, saying, "Hey, like I said, I'm Finnish, yay!" So everyone said, really, and of course the story goes on from there. And the thing of it is, the people in Finland have as many misconceptions about the U.S. as people in the U.S. have about other people in other countries, especially the home countries in Europe or wherever the hell they're supposedly from. And the question is, people always ask as well, how much does it really matter? And like anything else, to me, patriotism and um, honor and loyalty and all that stuff is like every people understand in life. They'll say, well, it's a two-way street, blah blah, when it comes to relationships between people, and they clearly understand that concept. But when the question is, what kind of relationship is there between your government and the little people, and is there one? Other and At some point in my life, I started realizing that when it comes to the United States, there really wasn't one. They stopped caring for little people years and years ago. And it became very obvious to me and lots of other people. I'm not the only one who was writing and complaining and holding, sit ins and other forms of protest. People were speaking out. There's no question about it. But the question is how many were speaking out and were they speaking loud enough? And of course, in the US, they're not, because the country is just too big, and the little people surprisingly have no real influence over the politics there. So this is supposed to be a primer check here, and we started doing that at about 1 minute in. Just dropped those two levels, and I dialed my microphone in a little bit better. I'll just keep on going, and maybe I will actually get to where I'm making some sense at some point. And the question is, why did you leave the US? And again, the answer is because there really isn't any future in the US for the working person. It's clearly obvious, as so many people have said, so many commentators who actually represent a community of little people, if you will, but they represent something that little people recognize when they look at it or they hear about it, even if they don't necessarily agree with it. They still go, "Wow, it doesn't make sense that that exists." Which is in the U.S. It is the idea that all the politicians, aka leaders, are sold out. They're all under the thumbs of people who have way more money than you will ever have or believe you could have. My daughter gave me this mug. Isn't it awesome? Check it out. And the official Finnish line here is that there is no proof that reindeer cannot fly. Absolutely none. So until there is, we will accept that uh, there are flying reindeer as per Santa Claus in earlier reports. And yes, it's coffee, just coffee, which is probably too much. I drink of it, but that's okay. Finns love coffee. So why did I leave? I left because when I was 13, 14 years old, I started working construction in the US. I ended up with, I was making, within 1 year of starting, I was working well enough that I was being paid $15 an hour. And that was usually cash money. And if it wasn't cash money, if it was going to be on a paycheck, we usually got a couple bucks more an hour. So 17 on a paycheck or 15, there's usually some kind of differential whether you were going to get paid in cash or you were going to get paid by the hour on a check. So we were basically, the point is we were making 17 to $20 an hour in 1983 as tradespeople in the U.S. building houses and that were 125,000. And at that time, we were complaining. We were looking at each other, going, "Well, shit, how are we going to ever be afforded to buy one of these houses when we only make X amount of money?" And that's becomes funny now that we're 30, 40 years later in the future. It becomes a funny fucking thing. Excuse my French, but it's funny because now the houses are $650,000. The same ones we were building. I don't care what people say. They're the same. They're the same size. They had just have some interior design changes, and that's about it. No big deal. But those houses cost 5 times as much money. And everyone goes, "Well, that's completely understandable. Land, water, taxes, blah, blah." And then you go, "Okay, fine. Well, how about the tradespeople? Are the people building these houses also making 5 times more money? So they're making what, $80 an hour, 90, 100 now? Because, look at everything else is so expensive." And the answer to that question is always no. It's always no. No, go look through the ads. Go look on Craigslist. Go look online. Look at what the average tradesperson in your area is making in green toilet paper dollars, not real money, but green toilet paper dollars. They're making the same money as tradespeople were making 30, 40 years ago in today's time. And then they wonder, they cry, "Oh, there's labor shortage. Oh, shit, men don't want to work. Oh, what's going on? How come no one wants to do stuff? No one's all lazy. They want to sit on their couch and play games." No, no one does that. No one, no man with any honor, with any sense of internal worth, which is a lot of men, believe it or not, has that kind of an attitude. Just as many women have a very powerful motivation to succeed in their fields and in their homes and everywhere else. It's the same fucking thing. But uh, anyway, so for the tradesperson in the U.S., the average working person, they went nowhere. They went backwards basically every year. You took a step backwards from whatever you had when you were 20 years old. It's like you've seen a lot of stories now. People are talking online. "Wow, when I was waiting tables back in college, I had a better lifestyle than I do today." And that's most all of it's been taken up by greed. And the fact that, like from my example, when I was making that kind of money in 1983, I was renting a studio apartment in Ventura, California, which is a beach community in California. And my rent from my little studio was $335 a month. And I can remember my electric bill was $13 a month, and my cable bill was $6. So you're sitting there going, "Wow, my I could make my whole month's rent and utility bills and living expenses and with 3 days pay." And then basically everything after that, when you're a kid, you don't have a family, you don't have a wife, you're not trying to, you're not thinking about the future, you're thinking about tomorrow night, not 2 years from now. And that was no different, but at least back then we could afford that. We had the ability to go out and actually phones and internet and all that bullshit wasn't here yet, so you had to actually go meet people. That's how we did it. We went out and we looked at other people and they looked at us, and there was mutual attraction. You would generally know about it. You could do things that way. But again, that comes from the ability to socialize outside of your fucking living room. And the way things are today is so many people are so broke that they don't have that kind of an option anymore. Anyway, that's how it stayed in the US for a lot of years. I everywhere I went, I was making the same money or less money than I was before. So anyway, and all that same time as they were holding the wages stagnant for the working person, they were also taking away services and other things that benefited the working person. They're stripping them right out of all the social programs. What happened to $50 doctor visits that you just paid cash for? Where did those go and become some kind of monster thing that you still pay 50, 100, 150 for a visit, and a bunch of, insurance related stuff that really you're on the hook for a bunch of money if you don't. But that's another video. It's another subject. We'll talk about that one another time. But the short story here is, as I said, I've been an advocate for the working class person, for 40 years. Ever since I was a young man, I was looking around me going, hey, what's going on here? Every year it's not getting any better for the working person. It just gets worse. And I sat there and started like Don Quixote. He started tilting at windmills, just running at them, and thinking I was going to be heroic, and I was going to speak, and I was going to yell, and I was going to write, and I was going to do this and that and the other, and loud enough, and the little person still had a chance to influence things. And then after you realize every single election, it's the same story. It's always, flip a coin, choose heads or tails, and then the problem is it's a two-sided coin basically, and it's the same coin, and it's a worthless coin. It's not even money coin. So what is the little person actually getting as far as their political representation in the freaking United States? It's not united at all. I call it the divided states. It's hard to find three people in a room in the United States, just three people in the room, that two of them don't agree on the same thing. And that's a standard all across the country. Multiply that in biggest fraction, not a math magician or nothing, but multiply that as big a number as you can, and you will see that that's statistically the ruination of a society. It should be over time, if you take a 3-person sample enough, in other words, as far as I understand this kind of stuff, it should average out and closer to 50%, because two will agree on one thing and two will agree on another thing and so on. But that's not how it is. It's very polarized, and to a degree that I don't think European societies understand. But anyway, that's another thing for the working person, is that their deal just got worse. They just took your pension, and they took your overtime, and then they took your uh, pay raises. Basically, you got 2% a year, which is nothing in an inflationary environment where it's more like 4, 5, 8, 10% a year. Realistically, for the working man, where does their standard of living go every year if the numbers themselves are telling you a 2% raise minus a 10% increase in cost of living gives you negative 8%? Like I said, I'm not a mathematician. I was a communications major, but you don't have to be a genius to figure that one out, do you? Anyway, so I looked at, and I thank God, basically the reality is, I figured I wanted to immigrate for a long time out of Finland for that reason, and ideally I wanted to take my daughter with me, and that's a really hard sell with most of the governments in the world, man. It's tough to you can, if you have a wife or a spouse or a husband, you can do that kind of migration, and that one's not so bad. It's not easy, but it's not as bad as kind of coming with an adult child. But fortunately for me, Finland has on the books, again, laws change. But I don't see why they wouldn't want, what's going on now to continue. I think it's great, because that's why I'm here. And that's the golden ticket I'm always talking about. If you look at what options are available to you, some people who hear my channel and hear me speak about this, have heard me mention that there's actually 10 other countries in the EU that offer citizenship by ancestry or descent, and that sometimes it's residency on a path to citizenship, basically, which is the same thing that Finland offers. And if you have essentially a parent or grandparent, and there's a couple of countries I looked at, man, they were going back 4 generations. They didn't care. I think it was Poland, because of the whole situation that happened in the 40s with, Polish. A lot of them were Jews and so on, and population records and everything. They just destroyed everything, basically, because they didn't want the Germans to know that who was who, and that's why all that stuff went away. And I agree with that. But anyway, so Poland, I think, is one of them that goes back to great grandparents. If you can have a documented great grandparent on either side, you think about that. That's like 64 options or something that you can, if you have Polish, like 1/64th Polish, and you can get a permit to go to Poland to be a resident. And I can assure you, the cost of living in every EU country I've seen, and I'm in one of the ones that everyone complains about how expensive it is. and agreed that taxes can be high. When you make more than a certain amount of money, you start paying some actual taxes, but that's the way society has to be. And people that complain about high taxes need to focus on the level of representation and the level of services that they're getting in that society. And that's a point where I think Finns really fall down, quite frankly. People who live in Finland, they have it a much their lower threshold of where they're discontented to live in their life is much higher than the average person in the United States now. The average working class person, as I've said, they have a no future, literally no future. They can't even look forward to keeping what they have. Whereas Finns, they whine and they complain about things are different and things are rough, and they're watching things slip away that they should be paying better attention to. That's for sure. And that's what I'm here for too. I love Finland. That's why I'm here, and I have verifiable Finnish ancestry. That's why I'm here. And then I thought, wait a second, there's got to be a ton of people in the U.S., especially, and who have a similar situation to me. They have Finnish ancestry, or they have. And the reason I offered Finnish ancestry help is because it's the thing that I'm most familiar with. But I'm actually wanting to go to law school. I'm going to try to go to uh, law school here in next semester, next season, and focus on immigration. And I'll learn more about the other 10 countries and so on, and I'll help anyone who needs it. Because basically, I think the ship of state in the U.S. is it's sinking, especially for the working person, and even for the middle class. What they think they're still middle class is that they're not really middle class anymore. If you look at their value of their assets compared to the value of the dollar over 30 years ago, and this is the part that always gets left out of the equation, and that is the value of the currency itself is literally, they'll tell you when you look it up in 10 seconds on Google, that the value of the currency is down 98% since 1970. So in 50 years, the purchasing power of the dollar, according to the government's own statistics, is down 98%. Again, I apologize for my rough mathematical calculations, but that's kind of saying that you've lost like a 50th or 50 times your value, 2% a year of your purchasing power. So you're down literally more than a multiple of 2 or 3 in terms of standard of living versus if you're making the same wage. Now, not everybody was getting paid the same wage, of course. So that end of it, they hit you with inflation on, for people who thought they were getting raises, for example. But now, if you look at people now that they're complaining that $100,000 a year isn't enough money, and the reality is it isn't. If you're paying, again, back to my studio, long-winded story. Sorry. That same studio, I looked it up on Zillow or Google Maps or something. It is quite literally the very identical same building. As I'm banging on my desk, my mic's all shaking. That same building, my same apartment, is $1,650 a month now. $1,650 a month. If you want to live in Ventura, California, in a little studio that really is, I think, smaller, well, it might be the same size as what I live in now. But this is an actual 1 bedroom. And it is actually has I think it's called a Pullman style kitchen that you access from both sides. And it has the entry hallway in the foyer has the restrooms located right out there. So it works as a guest, and it works as the bedroom, it works as the living room. I said these finished apartments are small, but they're very well designed. And my total living expense here is €580 a month. And I live in a town called Bay. And I try to explain this to people, and they say, well, why? You can live in the Bay, and there's a town called Bay in California. Yeah, sure there is. But have you seen what it costs to live there? Well, they complain about a labor shortage, and they accuse men and women both of not wanting to work. Come on. You can't blame little people for your problems, society. How can you think you're going to get away with that? That doesn't even make any sense. Who's driving the boat? Who is in charge, Captain? Is it the? Let me. Should I go check down in fourth class and see if they're wanting to, give us some navigation advice? Oh, they don't know a thing about navigation. Oh, okay. Well, then I guess it's your job. Skip. It makes no sense. As I said, we have not held the leaders accountable in the U.S. They always boil it down to devil versus super devil, and I haven't really no experience with the Finnish electoral process yet. I don't know if I am even allowed to and get involved in politics as far as voting as a continuous resident. I haven't even looked into it. I mean, that's I think I should. I should find out. Do you get to vote in at least city elections or something? I don't know. I don't know how they work it here in Finland, but I'm pretty certain that there's a layer of accountability that you can't just say, "Oh, the only two candidates that mattered were A and B," and then if people said, "Well, what kind of votes did C, D, and E get? Did they get some votes?" Yeah, but they didn't matter statistically. Yeah, they matter statistically because I cast one vote, and if it got counted, they should be able to tell me that my candidate B or candidate 37 or whoever I choose to support, yeah, they got one vote, dude. It was yours. All right, they should be able to tell me that. But in the states, they just clip that right out of the statistics. They don't count anybody that isn't in the top two, and then they use that lack of information to convince people that there's no point in voting third party. And not only are you hurt, not helping yourself with your own desires for leadership, but you are hurting the regular devil, because now the super devil is going to beat the regular devil because of you. It's your fault. And anyway, that's just a crock of nonsense that they sell to. I don't understand. I mean, people are supposed to be smarter than that. They are. For people that are running around with college degrees every day, who's supposedly spent 5 years in the university. Well, what the hell did you learn? Did you not learn to question anything? You just kind of just chilled. I don't know if that's where intelligent people want to be, but anyhow, why did I come to Finland? Because literally, there's no future for the working class. There literally is no future, and I'm going to give you a prediction right now. I'll tell you what: the only way they're going to sustain it is through immigration, but not only immigration, but just as the unions accepted what's called a two-tier uh, working situation, which is what they're trying to get away with here in Finland now, by the way. So Finns, you should be paying attention to this. But they want to let companies offer two-tier contracts. You guys get to keep yours because they already agreed to give it to you. But anybody they hire after you, well, those guys, it's okay to work them over a little more and don't get sucked into it. It took the unions in the United States 40 years now to try to bail out of that. The screw over they did to their own sons who were going to follow after dad and go into the family business and so on. They took their big slice of cake and said, "Wow, I have lots of cake. It's awesome for me," and it was. But again, the boomers just didn't take any accountability like they should for what happened. A lot of it they voted for, directly or indirectly, and they refuse to take accountability, and that's fine. No one wants to stand up and say, "Yeah, I'm the guy who flooded this server room," or whose fucking fish caught on fire in the microwave in the break room. Sorry, no one wants to be that person, and that's a shame because that needs to come from the bottom a lot as well as you would expect it to be at the top. And again, here in Finland, I think people they are rehellinen. I'm gonna get that right one of these days, and it's in the Finnish character. I get it. I dig it. I've always been that way because I've always been Finnish, which is why I'm here. But here's basically in a nutshell. In Finland, you will be a regular-sized fish in a medium-sized pond, and your ability to affect the outcome of your future and the future of others that you care about and live with will be significantly higher than it is in the US as a regular person. Because what people forget and they always overlook, and it's just so simple and basic, is that wealthy people always have options. They can complain all they want about how terrible it is in your country. And at some point, the same thing that they tell little people, why aren't we telling them? Well, just go. If you don't like it, just go. You can't live in a wonderful, beautiful country like Finland and not want to pay tax for the air and the water and the roads. You just can't. And I think every Finn that, is a Finn in their heart knows that you can't do shit for free. It takes money to run stuff. It takes money to have a quality of life. And that's something that we all agree is worth paying for, I think. I have better ideas for how to pay for it, but nobody's asking me and it's none of my business. I think the accountability is there for the Finnish leadership that surrounds you, just like when you're in a military unit. You have to look at your supervisor and say, wow, this person is intelligent. This person is in that position because they're not an idiot. And ideally, if you're in a well-functioning organization or machine, that will be the truth. You can believe it. And a lot of the problem that younger people have is they come into an organization and they think that they should be running the boat. And maybe they do have a lot of knowledge in something. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But one thing's for sure. One thing's for sure. The average person, I'll say it 100 times, the average person here in Finland, even though the average Finn doesn't believe it and doesn't acknowledge it, and I try to convert them every chance I get to. I try to remind them, hey, you have, a lot, and what you have is going to go away if you don't fight for it, if you don't, press for keeping it, because there are those lined up who want to take away your health care. They want to make you pay copays and deductibles, and they want to take away your contract work situation that everyone that I've talked to, as far as little people in Finland, they love that. I love that concept, and yet you're letting it slip away. You're watching your leaders go, well, shit, why not? Well, who cares? They won't do us wrong. Yes, they would. Because why? Because money. It's not rocket science. Money corrupts the political process, and I keep saying 100 times, why model yourself and your country and your culture and your society on something that is worse than the outcome you desire as a people? That's irrational, just straight up irrational. It makes no sense at all. And yet, over and over and over again in every country, the US is just terrible, of course, but here, why is the virus infecting a country of small as Finland with as many smart people as there are in Finland? And what happened to the idea of there being 10 different parties that you had to get a consensus with? Because why are you guys fighting each other? Why are you disagreeing and letting a single party dictate the future of Finland when Finland belongs to all Finns? And that's why you're in office, allegedly, because you represent 4% of the Finns or 8% of the Finns or something. Do you? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you can't get together with these other 3% and that or the 8% and make a coalition like you're supposed to and help little people in Finland, well, you're gonna look at a big 200-kilo man on the couch eating pizza, and you're gonna say, I want to be like him so I can be a faster runner, because that's as much sense as modeling your own country and your own children's future, because that's what you're doing. Your own children's future. It's as simple as that. And you're modeling it on something that is failing. It's literally failing. It is known to be failing. And here I am from there. Spent 40 years plus there. I'm not going to tell you how many exactly plus. And I'm telling everyone, every fan, the reason I'm here is because the average person has a much better lifestyle here. It just being able to live in a beautiful place, I can't tell you, is invaluable. I really enjoy it. It has been, as I said, how would I say, rakastan Suomi. I love Finland and the people here and the culture, even though they're quite different than I'm used to. And I talk a lot about that. And a lot of your situation, even though you have Finnish bloodline, and rightfully so, people will expect you to speak the language. They'll expect you to know the history. And if you're under 22 and you're a male, they'll expect you to do your military service. Those are the rules. You don't like the rules, that's too bad. You can, at that point, you can say, I don't want to play the game, or I don't want to be, this and that. But if you make the choice not to follow rules, then you need to, as an adult, accept the idea that you're going to pay a price for your non-compliance. Speech is free, as they say, but not always free of consequences. So, likewise, again, to me, the first thing I did when I got to Finland was try to volunteer for civil service or something. I mean, I can push a button or run down the road and do stuff. And when you hear things like 80% of Finnish men have served, well, I'm a Finnish man, and I wanted to be among them, and they for whatever reason, I mean, the shit hasn't hit the fan, obviously, but if it did, I'm still willing to do what I need to do as a Finnish man. There's no place to run to, as far as I didn't come here because I was running away from the United States. I came here because I was running to Finland because my father was Finnish and his father before him, and my grandfather's buried here, and blah blah blah, and all the stuff the Finns don't care about. And that's fine, but people from the States seem to have a kind of an attraction to their bloodline and to their heritage in a way that, again, that Finns and Europeans don't understand, and that I think is because uh, the culture really doesn't exist in the U.S. It's just kind of a gaping hole of cultural nonsense. They make it. In other words, they change the style so often that there really is no time for anything culturally or historically or architecturally or otherwise to develop as a signature. So I think the young people are just, all they think about is consumption. That's the whole message and model for them is consumption, and it's just no future. And I think there should be people in Finland like me, but much younger than me. And when if I had been able to do this when I was fresh out of college, I think I would be a mile ahead of where I am right now, 2 miles. But again, things go slower here in Finland. I don't speak the language like I should. I'm holding myself accountable as much as anyone else. That's why I keep over and over on my channel. Over every week, I'm telling people, you know what? You want to be finished, you better learn the language. Start now. Don't wait until you step off the plane. Have 2 years under your belt by the time you do. You will be just much more likely to get a nice position in a company a lot faster. You're like talking months instead of 2 years. You have to, people, the thing that makes me sad is I know a lot of men, I don't know women as well, obviously, but I know men will sit around and they'll play a video game for 2,000 years, excuse me, 2,000 hours in a year because they all tell you now, you can see your stats right there. If you think about that, that's a full-time job. That's an 8 hour a day. That's 40 hours a week that men will spend playing a video game. I don't care what your preference is. And the reason I know that this is true is because I used to be that man. I used to spend, so if you can, and my point is, again, long story, if you can put 2,000 hours in a year into playing, Call of Duty or NFL, whatever, then you can put 2,000 hours in 1 year into studying a language. And if you honestly did that for a year before you got to Finland and started walking around and calling yourself Finnish, I think you'd get a whole lot more respect. And as I said, you would fit right into where you need it to be so quickly. It would just blow your mind because I think Finns are accepting of other Finns. Yeah, what can I say? And if you have Finnish bloodline and you have an affinity for Finnish culture and you've been eating licorice your whole life, I was not just, not what they call licorice in the US, that's red candy. So I'm talking the black stuff, the stuff with salmiakki in it. I've been eating that since I was a kid. I've been taking sauna since I was a kid, and at every holiday or vacation or when I could, I would just jump in one. And a lot of people in these states kind of look at me funny. And I mean, I maybe wealthy people are like, "Oh, I do sauna every day because I'm wealthy. I have one right. It's right over there." But for most of us little people, it's not that simple. There's one in this building that I could use, but I didn't want to because, well, money, first of all. But now I just have a gym membership at a place that is a pricey one here in Lochte, but it does have a sauna. So I get a nice workout in, get my Poompa on, and then I go down there and sweat out my sins. So anyhow, I think, when you're starting, especially as being an immigrant, starting from scratch, getting off a boat with nothing, like you hear that our Finnish ancestors did when they went to the States, they did the same thing that I did, except in reverse. When they got to, the harbor in New York, they jumped off a boat and they had a bag in their left hand and they had a bag in their right. They had exactly two suitcases full of stuff, the same as me. And nowadays, if the reverse wouldn't work, if you couldn't be a Finn doing that and jumping off the boat in New York and expecting to make any progress in your life, not as a working person, and you think you could, you think you're going to be just like they sold all American working people the same stupid idea. Oh yeah, you can just grind away, just grind your nose until it ain't the nose anymore, and you'll be a winner, you'll be a billionaire, whatever. You'll be the one out of 8 billion people that does, again, nonsense. You have a much greater chance. You can tell them to their face. You have a much greater chance of being struck by lightning than becoming a millionaire. Have you ever been hit by lightning? No. Oh, do you hope to be struck by lightning? No. So then, why do you believe this is a desirable thing? Anyway, it makes no sense. It's nonsense. And again, they've just turned the people who should be paying attention the most, which is the little people, just like I keep saying about Finland. You Finnish people, you need to pay attention. You need to get your vote out, and whatever it is you do here, you need to knock it out. You need to not let your rights be literally sold to the highest bidder, and not let your jobs be sold to the highest bidder in some cheap ass country somewhere. Excuse my French, or pardonnez-vous mon anglais, as the French people would say. But again, why do I think that was the first half of the question? Why did I come here? There you go in a nutshell. Do I think you should come here? I think you should come here if you're listening to me from the United States and you have verifiable Finnish ancestry. The message people are probably missing is that you're not being locked up here in Finland. You can come here and you can get your continuous residency permit. And as I said, you can be a dual national. Both countries allow dual national status. You could get your continuous residency here. You can learn the language. You could take the citizenship test. You could get a stamp on it. You can get a Finnish passport, and you would still have a U.S. passport. There is no reason or rule that says you can't immediately jump on a plane and go back to the United States if you're so unhappy here and everything is so terrible for you here. You could. My point is, It's not like you're locking yourself into a contract with a country for the rest of your life that you're stuck with, because you're not. Again, I can't speak for the other countries in the same thing, but as far as I know, most of them offer dual national status. Why not? Yes, I do drink this generic stuff, which is less than half the price of Pepsi Max. You can buy these at the Prisma for 65 cents, and that includes a 20-cent deposit. It's ridiculously cheap. And these are half a liter, which is a kind of an easy to understand measurement as opposed to X fluid ounces. But anyway, that's another subject for a video. But why should people who can? Because it's a golden ticket. They should come here because they literally are holding a golden ticket Finnish needs immigrants, and I keep saying if you have a chance to go somewhere where you are actually invited to, that is the happiest country on earth, that has the cleanest water and the cleanest air, just 10,000 lakes or 100,000 lakes, I don't know how many it is, and everywhere you go is just a forest of trees. And if the expression is you can't see the forest for the trees, well, here in Finland, you are in the forest and you will see the trees. And as I said, Finland is in an enviable position as far as the little person is concerned. We still have a chance here. Enough of you smart Finnish Americans, and even if your parents, as I've said, if you know that you have citizenship, dual national citizenship, then your children have the right to Finnish citizenship or residency, but only if they do the right thing by the time they need to do it. So again, if you're under 22 and you're a male, you need to come back to Finland. You have to. You literally have to come back to Finland and do your Inti service. And it makes sense. It's only 4 months. You'll survive. But when you do that, you get invested as a Finnish citizen. And that's the primary reason that I have residency status instead of citizenship right now, is because I didn't do military service by the time I was 22. And I don't have an issue with that, except that I didn't even know that I had Finnish ancestry until, verifiable. The question was verifiable. I wasn't able to verify my Finnish ancestry. That's another story, until I was in my 40s. And no one had ever sent me a letter at any point in my life or any kind of notification. Oh, you need to come here to Finland and do your service. And as soon, I guess, as I said, as soon as I got off the plane and came to Lahti and started chilling, I went right into the civil service place and said, "Hey, I'm a Finn man. I'm here to do some duty. Let me watch a dam crack. Let me run around the woods for 4 months. I don't care. I'll do it. I'm a reasonably fit man." And as I said, I think that requirement should be, as far as accepting Finnish immigrants, Finnish, desirable, high quality, whatever you want to call it, but people with verifiable Finnish ancestry who have roots here, family here. I think they should have the ability to serve, and the requirement, not just the ability, but the requirement to do a civil service if they're, they don't like war or whatever the dealio is. But there should be a way, if they're dentists or doctors, they should be able to plug them into a clinic. I mean, how are we going to address the healthcare problem? That's a good idea. Let's bring doctors and RNs from the US, Finnish doctors and nurses with Finnish bloodlines, and put them in the hospitals and let them work 4 months. And pay them, obviously, but that will help the fields that we need help in. Again, there should be a lot more that the Finnish government is doing, as long as they're letting people with Finnish ancestry here, they should have a better mechanism to use their abilities and qualifications and easier. I think that's all. I think that if you're a qualified nurse or a qualified teacher, it shouldn't take 3 years to get into a position in a field where they claim that there is a shortage of people, of quality people, and they're bringing them in from second and third world countries, nurses and so on. Why are we doing that? It doesn't make sense. Why, again, Finnish people are rational people. You got most people are not stupid in Finland. But that's not the question. The question is, are you smart? Okay, I understand that you're not stupid, but are you smart? So that's all I'm saying. Let's bring the Finnish residents over. Let's let them make better lives for themselves and for Finland. Let them add to the equation. That's what I keep telling everyone I'm here for. I'm here to make Finland a tiny, tiny bit better. And if I need to pay, if I'm paying 50,000 euros in taxes a year, I will celebrate that, because I know I'll be making a lot more than that, and that's okay. Paying taxes is not the evil, the source of all evil in society, and that's a lie. How much tax you pay, what the tax goes for, how it's allocated, those are arguments that they stay on the table, no doubt. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say in English. Why are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater, Finn? Finn people? Why are you letting them divide the coalition governments? They can't even get a coalition on half the stuff anymore, as far as I know. Again, I don't really understand Finnish politics. I have to do some more research on that, but I imagine when I understand the language better, it'll be easier. But anyway, so this has been the why I came to Finland episode, and why you should too. Again, because I had the ability to do so, and I believe the United States is at the brink of becoming more difficult than it is now. So again, come on over, get your citizenship. Parents, help your kids. It's a great gift you can give them. It's a great country. You'll love it too. So why not? Why not cash in your ticket? They don't hand out that many, like and the Willy Wonkas. You gotta take the chances you get in life. You gotta redeem that ticket for it to be of any value. If you wait till it expires, it's of no value to you. But anyway, this has been Unscripted. I hope it was at least entertaining. I'll have to see what this looks like in post. But for now, I want to say thanks for watching Fintegration Society, episode 13, Unscripted. I hope the sound levels came out right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Look forward to saying to you one day, Tervetuloa Suomeen. Welcome to Finland.